Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com. I want to show you how these tables were created. Now, Adam from GreenLeafTerrain made these for us over the past 10, 15 years. And we've had a lot of questions, especially recently with our latest Gorkamorka narrative campaign on how we actually make them. So I want to show you that right now. I'm not going to show you how we make all the stuff on top. That's just your typical terrain building. There's tons of tutorials out there. I want to show you underneath what it looks like. So we're going to move this to the side, and I'm going to show you exactly how these are put together. But before we dive into that, this video is sponsored by me, or more specifically by the brand new Season 4 of our Gorkamorka narrative campaign, available right now at MiniWarGaming.com/Gorkamorka. If you want to see Gorkamorka in action, custom mobs, zany vehicles, a full campaign system, and all the madness that makes this game so lovable, check it out. Of course, the first episode is free, and the rest are available to our paying Vault members, because they are who support us. So let's go back in. We'll grab one of the older ones, actually, the ones without the clamps, which we'll talk about in a second, just so you can see what it looks like underneath. Now, this is not overly complicated, but there are a few things that we had to learn from trial and error. First off is, what size wood would you want to use for this? Well, we used 1x3s. We found it was a good balance between how big they were and the strength. So if you go much bigger than 1x3s, and if you want that in metric, that would be 19 millimeters by 38 millimeters. I don't know what the standard size is when you talk about it in metric, so that's how big they are. They're 19 by 38. If you go bigger, it'll be stronger, but it just takes up more space, and it goes up higher, and you don't really need that. And if you go any smaller than this, then it's not really strong enough. So you can see that the 1x3s are designed that there's just a 2 foot by 4 foot entire box size. We don't make it at the smaller table size, because then this gives us the flexibility to play at the bigger sizes or at the smaller sizes. And also some other games don't use those sizes. So we wanted to have a standard 2 foot by 4 foot table. So we can make 4 foot by 4 foot tables or 6 foot by 4 foot tables. So what's really important to note is the crossbeam over here. This is what keeps it from warping. Now there's always going to be a little bit of warping, which is why we're going to talk about latches, but the crossbeam is a big part of it not warping. This also helps when you make it 2 feet by 4 feet to not warp, because instead of making a long 6x4 table, which is harder to store, this allows you to have much more strength. Now you might look at it and think, well, especially if you're a carpenter, you might see all sorts of ways to improve it, and feel free to leave a comment below. Maybe you'd want like angled ones in the corners. But we've had these for 10 to 15 years, and for the most part, they haven't warped. So what Adam did is he created the frame, first off. It's important, and you can see where it's split a little bit here, that you do drill holes before you put in the screws. And then he caps it with a piece of plywood. In this case, I believe he used 3/4 inch plywood, which is like 19 millimeters, but you could totally get away with 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter plywood as well. And you just put that on top. Once again, you drill the holes, and then you're able to put the screws in. Now you'll notice that you can't see the screws unless any of them have broken. And that's because obviously he does that, recesses them, and then puts the finish on top of that. But to make it look even better, and I need to give a shout out right now to another YouTube channel. It's called Scenery Planet TV. They're a channel out of Spain, and I got these ideas from them about 13, 14 years ago when we first started doing this. So I'll try to remember to put a link to them in the description. I don't think they make very many videos anymore, but they used to make all sorts of awesome terrain videos because they were a commission terrain studio at the time. And so we got a lot of these ideas from them. So what we do to finish it off is, if you look from this angle, you can see that we have a piece of MDF, a nice smooth piece of MDF. This one is 1/8 of an inch thick, or 3.2 millimeters, and that caps off the whole thing and covers all of the ugliness of it, and it really finishes it off. And almost no matter what color you do the top of the table, I find that I like the sides being black. But that also comes down to like how you base your miniatures. Maybe you like brown or some other colors as well. But black just seems to give that really nice look. The advantage of the MDF is, you can see, it allows you to do other things. Like here, Adam did some resin pouring to give us a water effect. And by having this MDF cap, he's able to have it go up just a little bit higher. And that gives him a nice way to capture the resin as well. But most importantly, it comes in handy for when you're building up the tables. And this is one of the big advantages of using these tables over the gaming mats. I love the gaming mats from Table War, Game Mat, Urban Mats, all these different companies. They are revolutionary, even though they're a simple idea, but they really made a big difference for gamers like you and us, because they're easy to store, not too expensive, and they look great. But if you do miss the 3D aspect of these, then this allows you to do that. And so like this one, for example, is just a big piece of styrofoam, like your pink or your blue, or even white styrofoam can work if you finish it properly. But styrofoam gets damaged quite easily. And so by having the MDF on the side, it protects it quite well. So to take it even a step further, and this is another idea I got from Scenery Planet TV, we have the latches. So one thing I noticed, especially on lighter colored tables like the Gorkamorka one, the sand one, is that when you put the two tables together, if there's any gap whatsoever, it's very visible because it's dark versus this. I might think you can fix that just by painting the side the same color, but it doesn't quite work because it casts a shadow anyway, so you're gonna get that dark line. And while that's not the end of the world, one of the ways to get around that is to have the latch system. Now these are just simple clamps. There's not that you can use whatever kinds you want. You just have to make sure that they're nice and strong. And Adam even painted the black over them as well to make them blend in. But you can see that it just clamps on. In this case, he has 2 of them because it's too high. And if they do start to warp, you'll notice that you'll have to really work it, and that forces the wood back together and gets rid of it. So if you look at this table, for example, you'll see that the line is quite minimal. Now these ones are a little newer, so they haven't had a chance to do any warping. But even if as they warp, these clamps will allow us to bring them back together. So if it is just a standard height, you just have 1 clamp. And then if it's a double height, you have 2 clamps. Now this is another thing, as much as I'm not gonna give you all the details on the different ways that you can top your tables, as you can, we'll look at this one for a second and you can get some ideas. We got styrofoam to raise it up. And then of course, to make these, he just uses little bits of cardboard, like off of a cereal box or whatever. You can cut them up and do it that way. These are actually 3D printed. I believe they're printable scenery bridges that we have on our forge. And so we 3D printed a few of those. Same with these pieces. Obviously you can construct them yourself. Like he did over here with these docks. He constructed those off of little pieces of wood. Adam is really good at this. He makes fantastic looking scenery. And he does it for commissions as well. GreenLeafTerrain if you want to look him up. But anyways, so there's all sorts of ways you can do it. By having this ability to build up with your styrofoam, then you can do really cool stuff like these waterways. One thing you have to think about though is how they are going to mesh together. And so you'll notice that most of the waterways on our tables always go from short side to short side. And that way we can line these up with almost any table as long as it matches. We even have some transition tables where the one side will be one type of table and the other side will be another one. So if you wanted to have a longer one at the transition, then that would work just fine as well. And so yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff once you start building up and having that 3D effect. But there's tons of tutorials out there. If you look up any terrain making tutorial, essentially you can apply what you learn to right here as well. The last thing I want to talk about is risers. So this is where the system really comes together and allowing you to really use these tables to different effects. And so you can see that we typically work in one of 2 levels. We have the first level and the second level. And whenever Adam makes these, he always is consistent with the height of the levels. And that way you can do things like this. So we have a special table that we just call a riser table. It is built identically to all the other ones. And except that it's just painted black and there's no special finish on top of it. Because what we do with this one is we put it there and then we're able to take a single level board, put it on top. Now these are older, so they're not going to line up quite as nicely as the newer ones that have all the clamps. And you can see now that's the same height. And so it allows us to mix and match them. If I wanted to, I could put another riser right there and then have this one sitting on top to go even higher. Or in this case, I can just flip it around. And because we have standard heights for everything that we do, you'll see that it lines up just fine. And these are very simple tables. They're just styrofoam, but it still has the MDF on the side to help everything. And we've had to do some repairs to these over the years. I think these ones are almost our oldest at about 13 or 14 years old, maybe even 15. Back when we did our first season of Gorkamorka is when Adam made these. And by the way, little shameless plug right here, we've got Gorkamorka season 4 right now for our Vault members. The first episode is out for free and we've already got the next few out. It's going to be 18 episodes in total and it's been a blast, so you can check that out there. But anyways, that's really all there is to it. Like I said, I'm not going to go into all the details of the tabletops right now. Maybe we'll make other videos about that if this one's popular enough and there's enough requests. But I'd love to hear your comments on whether or not you would have these kind of things as well. And if you're a carpenter or a woodworker and you saw anything that was like, oh man, you should have done it like this, I'd love to hear your comments as well. Because obviously not everything is done perfectly, and we can always learn new techniques. And I'm out of breath because I was just moving all these tables around. Oh, that's the last thing. They store nicely because you can turn them on the side, and you can see the storage that we have right here. We just bought some shelves and we're able to slide them in. And as much as they take up more space than the gaming mats, they take up a lot less space than 6x4 tables. And they have a lot more flexibility in what they can do. So anyways, that is how you can make your own gaming tables at home or for your store or club or whatever it happens to be. Thanks for watching. Happy wargaming.